Welcome back all. So here we are, another review for another episode of Quantum Leap. Today being episode 7, entitled O Ye of Little Faith. And I think that this one will divide opinion quite a bit. Might have a little bit of controversy about it. And also, I've got a lot of questions I want to pose. Well, not a lot of questions, a few questions I'm going to pose at the end that I might like you to give me some answers to, if you're open for that. So anyway, let's just leap into this one, shall we?
Davenport, you were here to perform an exorcism.
This is not real. There's a scientific explanation for what's happening. Hell no.
So Quantum Leap, here we are, episode 7, O Ye of Little Faith, as I already said. Now this episode here finds Ben, Sam, bloody hell, do you know what I mean? So used to saying that back in the day. Anyway, this episode here finds Ben leaping yet again outside of his own lifetime into the 1930s, specifically into an exorcism. Yes, Ben leaps into a priest, an exorcist, who's been called upon by this family whose young daughter is potentially suffering an exorcism. Now, Ben himself, a man of science, he doesn't believe in exorcisms and this sort of a thing because he has the scientific approach. As the episode continues, we do get introduced to this family with their own issues going along. Obviously, we're at that point in American history where the markets have crashed and everyone's lost money and this sort of a thing. And there's a bit going on between these two brothers, one of them having lost all of his money, the other one's this door-to-door salesman and of encyclopedias, and one brother has invested in him and all the money's been lost and all this sort of a stuff going on. So you got this young girl who appears to be possessed, have a demonic possession about her, and all evidence does point towards this. A doctor comes into the fray, he's introduced, and this here is where this sort of subject matter gets interesting for me, because I'm intrigued by the occult, shall we say. I don't do anything about it. You know, it's an intriguing subject, but at the same time I myself take the stance of the scientific background. But when you have the clash of religion and science coming together with two opposing reasoning for something and two different ways of dealing with it and all this, I find that a very intriguing concept, and it gets me thinking, it gets me, do you know what I mean? It gets me involved, shall we say, more than anything else. So this episode here, yeah, spoiler warning now, because I will talk about what happens. We come to find out that after a while, the possession, looking like a possession, actually turns out not to be. And it's a simple case of one of the family members attempting to kill the girl for inheritance reasons, by poisoning her, and also lacing gin with poison as well to make people see things that are not there, hallucinate, and to slowly sort of kill this girl off by poisoning her. There are bits in the episode where we see this sort of ghost monster or this ghost being type thing, and Addison is locked out of being able to help Ben in this one, so she's on her own back at HQ, and they're trying to figure out there what's going on, because obviously she can't get into the imaging chamber and get a link with Ben. At the very end of the episode, Janice makes a reappearance. Yes, Janice ain't been in it for some time, Al's granddaughter, and she's using her imaging chamber to come and see Ben, and it's this that is locking out the Quantum Leap and Addison people from being able to get to visit him. So there's the explanation for this because she appears as a sort of her hologram appears, not completely phased in and fuzzing and smoke around it, so to speak, and she's there to sort of give Ben a warning, but Ben leaps out before she can even relay that warning to him. So this here episode, what I'm saying is, it might split opinion. I think it's very early on to do an episode like this. Yeah, I know that the original Quantum Leap series did do little things like this, but by the time they'd done it, they'd earned it, by which I mean that they'd been on for a considerable amount of time before they earned the ability to do silliness, shall we say. This show is still fresh off the ground, and you're stepping into the territory of exorcisms and all this. Okay, I know the story twists out that it isn't, but there's some fantastical elements and visuals in this episode that you'd be, you know, that might put people off. So I might be surprised if this episode does have this sort of divide down the middle. For me, I thought it was a thoroughly enjoyable episode. I'll be honest, I really liked it. It completely worked for me because, like I said, the coming together of science and medicine, you know, religion and science, that clash. It didn't do too much with it, but that intrigues me to start with anyway, because me, in any situation, I will look for the sort of scientific reasoning behind an occurrence. I have to rule all that stuff out first. So I do find it very interesting prospect having the two come together, and whenever films or TV do this, I'm intrigued, and it all comes down to the writing. So, you know, the characters here, the acting was all pretty good. I can't say I didn't like it. There wasn't anything I didn't really like about this episode. It was enjoyable. You know, it wasn't as good as last week's episode. You know, ain't an episode I'm going to rave about or anything like that. I just thought it was a thoroughly strong episode. And that's my opinion on it. Yeah. Now, as for them questions that I have... Now, I know that this show has sort of rewritten the rules, shall we say, in that, you know, leaping beyond your own lifetime is because of certain safety parameters that have been put in place into the Quantum Leap project. However, when you go back to the original Quantum Leaps and you listen to the opening text crawl, shall we say, or the voiceover, it starts with this: theorising that one could time travel within his own lifetime. Dr. Sam Beckett stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator. The word there, theorising. Theorising that one could time travel within his own lifetime. Yes, it's not theorising that one could time travel, but yet we're going to put safety parameters in place to ensure that it is just kept within your own lifetime. It's theorising that one could time travel within your own lifetime. So now we've got this... You know, we've got this change where it's a safety parameter, which, you know, again, it opens questions to me, because Quantum Leap originally, it was within the own lifetime. And I know it did delve outside of that on a couple of occasions, but I think in some of it he leapt into his own family members or something like that, if I recall. But, you know, it only done it a couple of times. Here we're getting it all the time. Now, I know that we're getting it all the time, and I know the reason why we're getting it all the time. Because if Ben was only leaping within his own lifetime, you wouldn't have the ability to dress your actors up, shall we say. You know, you'd be confined to an era of history where there isn't too much visual change, to be honest with you. So I think that's part of it, so they can get that sort of differences in clothing, historic look and all that sort of a thing. You go into more interesting eras, shall we say, other than back to maybe the 1980s and no further beyond. So there is that. The other thing, the other question I have here is that in the opening talk of this series, it says that Ben, you know, stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator, and he hopes that each leap that he does will be the next leap that brings him closer to those he loves and, you know, basically home. The original Quantum Leap summed it up so much better, hoping that his next leap will be the leap home. But in this one, it's this drawn out, hoping each time that his next leap will bring him closer to the ones that he loves and the place he calls home and all this sort of nonsense. Anyway, right. Hold on a minute. I thought this guy has a plan where he's slingshotting himself to a certain specific point in time. So why is he hoping that his next leap will be the leap that brings him home closer to those when there's actually a plan in place that he's got? And I know he may not be able to remember that plan at this moment, but before stepping in, he's not hoping that his next leap will bring him home. He's hoping that his next leap will get him to a certain position in time. Anyway, just little niggles, little questions that I have about the show. But yeah, so this episode here, I did enjoy it. I will say that. I think this show's heading in the right direction. I think it's a shame if people have jumped ship. You've got to remember this is a completely different Quantum Leap show than what we had before. And the only thing that really this show, I won't say has to offer, the difference that this show has to offer is great. And that being the links to the original Quantum Leap. That being the modern day stuff where they're trying to figure out what's going on, and the stuff with Janice. That's the stuff that should keep the original Quantum Leap fans watching. If that stuff doesn't work for you, and what you're expecting and what you wanted was a whole episode devoted around the leap, or where Ben turns up like the original Quantum Leap used to give you, then what you're wanting is a remake of the original Quantum Leap, not a continuation. But there we go. Anyway, so there we have it. Let me know your thoughts on this episode down below. What you thought of it. Did you enjoy it? Didn't you enjoy it? Like I said, I'd expect it to divide opinion probably. But either way, good, bad, indifferent, let me know in the comments down below and let's talk about it. Let's talk about Quantum Leap and whether you're considering jumping ship. Do you think the show will be cancelled? Do you think we'll get to see all 18 episodes on NBC at least? I don't know. Well, time will only tell. I haven't got the answers, but maybe you can give me a bit of insight into your thought process. This is AJ, and I'll see you next week on episode 8. Yes. Take care all. Have a great week. See you soon.